I grew up with the smell of motor oil in my hair and grease on my jeans. While other girls were playing with dolls, I was handing wrenches to my dad in the middle of his garage. My name is Scarlett, and the garage wasn't just a workplace, it was my second home. My dad, Richard, built that garage in Ohio with his bare hands. He started with just one toolbox and a couple of loyal customers who trusted his work. I watched him pour his soul into every repair, every customer interaction. He taught me how to listen to the sound of an engine and know what was wrong before even popping the hood. We were a team. I never imagined myself doing anything else. When I was 8, everything changed. My mom passed away from cancer, and the world felt a little less safe. Dad was devastated, but he tried his best to keep things together for me. A few years later, he remarried. Her name was Lisa. She was polished, organized, and clearly uncomfortable with the grease under my dad's fingernails or the way I trailed him like a little shadow. Lisa came with a son, Chase. He was 2 years older than me and as cold as a Midwest winter. We tried to get along at first, but it was always awkward. He didn't care for engines, never set foot in the garage unless forced. I remember once offering to teach him how to change the oil. He laughed and said, "That's your thing, Scarlett. I'm more of a suit and tie guy." Still, I tried. I wanted us to be a family, but no matter what, it always felt like Lisa was trying to rewrite the story. Her version of a proper family didn't have room for grease-stained girls like me. She'd suggest ballet classes, scold me when I'd come to the dinner table with smudges on my hands. I always felt out of place. But Dad? He still looked at me like I was his right hand. I thought that meant something. Every weekend, every school holiday, I was in that garage with him, learning, working, growing. I believed, that one day that garage would be mine. It was our legacy, something only he and I truly understood. But I had no idea that everything I believed in would be ripped away from me by the very people I tried to call family. After high school, I didn't even consider college, not because I wasn't smart. I had the grades, the offers. But my heart wasn't in lecture halls or dorm rooms. It was in that garage, with the smell of gasoline, the clang of tools, and the quiet satisfaction of fixing something that seemed broken beyond repair. Dad didn't argue. In fact, I think he was proud. I remember the day I walked into the shop with my official mechanic's certification in hand. He didn't say much, just gave me a nod, that quiet kind of approval only dads give. From that day on, I wasn't just helping. I was his partner. Chase had already moved out by then. He got a business degree and took a job in Chicago. We rarely heard from him. Lisa would mention him occasionally, her voice always just a little too loud when she talked about his corporate success or his new condo in the city. I'd smile politely, then go back to work, because I was building something real. Over the years, I took on more and more. I handled our suppliers, dealt with licensing, even redesigned our booking system. I knew every bolt, every customer, every weird little rattle in every regular's car. Dad started calling me boss as a joke, but sometimes I wondered if he meant it. I was there through the slow seasons and the holiday rushes. When Dad hurt his back lifting a transmission, I ran the shop for 3 weeks. Our clients didn't even notice a difference. I'd grown into this place like roots into soil. I didn't need a title. I didn't need a paycheck with my name on top. I had purpose. Then came the day Dad got sick. At first, it was little things, forgetting names, losing track of time. Then came the scans, the appointments, the quiet looks between doctors that said everything before the words came. It was cancer. Aggressive. He didn't have much time. I moved into his house to take care of him. Lisa, surprisingly, was there too, but our rhythms never matched. She cooked, I gave him meds. She kept the curtains drawn, I took him outside to feel the sun. And through it all, I stayed at the garage, working during the day, sitting by Dad's side at night. I thought, this is what love looks like. This is what loyalty means. So when he told me, one night, holding my hand with tears in his eyes, "You're the reason this place survived," I believed that meant something. I truly believed he saw me, not just as his daughter, but as the one who'd carry on what he built. But that belief would soon be tested in the most brutal way possible. The day of the will reading felt like something out of a movie, only there was no dramatic music, no gasps, just this cold, clinical silence hanging in the air like fog. We sat in the lawyer's office, me, Lisa, and Chase, who had flown in from Chicago in a designer suit that looked like it had never been near a real day's work. He didn't look at me, not once. Mr. Holloway, our family lawyer for years, cleared his throat and began. At first, it was just the formalities. Debts paid off, personal items passed down. Then came the business. My chest tightened. I already knew what Dad meant to do. He told me himself. He said the garage was mine. But then I heard the words. To my son, Chase Matthews, I leave the entirety of Matthews Auto Service, including the property, equipment, and all associated rights. I froze. Mr. Holloway kept reading, his voice flat and emotionless, but I couldn't hear the rest. It was like the air had been sucked from the room. My ears rang, my hands went numb. I blinked, thinking maybe I'd misheard. But I hadn't. There was no mention of me in the business, not even a share, nothing. When the reading ended, Chase stood up casually, shoved the papers into his briefcase, and said, "Well, I guess I'll have to start figuring out how to run a garage." I stared at him. "You've never set foot in that place. You don't even know how to check the oil." He shrugged. "That's what managers are for. Maybe you can apply." Apply for the job I'd been doing for nearly a decade. In the business I helped keep alive, in the place I thought was home. Lisa gave me a look I'll never forget, somewhere between pity and triumph, like she'd won something. Like this was the plan all along. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I walked out of that office with my head high, but something inside me shattered. I drove straight to the garage, sat in Dad's old chair, and just stared at the walls. They still smelled like motor oil and dust and him. I whispered, "Why?" And the silence that answered was louder than anything I'd ever heard. The next few weeks were like watching my entire life being packed into boxes I never asked for. Chase didn't waste time. Within days, he brought in consultants to assess the business and tell him what needed modernizing. He started replacing our longtime mechanics with fresh-faced kids who had never changed a tire in their lives but had spotless Instagram profiles. He even redesigned the logo, took away Dad's signature wrench and gear emblem, and replaced it with something sleek and soulless. He called it rebranding. I wasn't fired, not officially, but Chase made it clear I was no longer needed. He scheduled meetings without telling me, reassigned my clients, locked me out of the office system. One morning, I came in and found my toolbox moved to the back closet. Without a word. Lisa showed up more frequently, walking through the garage like she owned the place, giving suggestions with a thin smile. I overheard her once telling a customer, "Scarlett's taking a little break. You'll be seeing new faces soon." Much more professional. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was erasure. I lasted 3 more weeks. 3 weeks of swallowing my pride, of pretending I still belonged in a place that now felt foreign. But one Friday afternoon, I stood in the middle of the garage I helped build and realized I wasn't just being pushed out. I was already gone. I packed up the few tools I still owned, left my keys on the workbench, and walked out without saying goodbye. No one stopped me. That night, I sat in my apartment, alone, jobless, grieving not just my father, but everything he and I had built together. I stared at my hands, still stained with oil, and wondered if any of it had mattered. Was I just invisible? But something inside me refused to let that be the end of my story. I opened my laptop and started looking, not for revenge, not for a fight. I looked for a new beginning. I moved to Michigan with nothing but a beat-up truck, a toolbox, and the stubborn belief that I could still build something of my own. The town was small, one of those places where folks still wave from their porches and the diner waitress knows your order by heart. It felt like a place that might give someone like me a second chance. I found a cheap room above a laundromat and took a job at a local repair shop run by an old mechanic named Harvey. He'd been in the business for over 40 years, and he didn't care that I was a woman, just that I could work hard and knew my way around an engine. Harvey's shop was nothing fancy. The tools were older than I was, and the sign out front was so faded it barely read auto. But I didn't care. For the first time in months, someone looked me in the eye and saw my worth. I worked open to close, 6 days a week. On Sundays, I took online classes in bookkeeping and small business management. I wanted to be more than just a good mechanic. I wanted to be ready, just in case life handed me one more shot. Harvey and I became close. He didn't talk much, but over greasy lunches and late repairs, he opened up. He'd never had kids, never married. His shop was his family, and I think, over time, he started to see me as the daughter he never had. One evening 2 years after I started, he handed me a set of keys and a file folder. "I'm retiring," he said, "and I don't want to sell this place to some chain that'll gut it for parts. You care about people, about the work, so I want you to have it." I stared at him, stunned. "Harvey, I can't afford this." He shook his head. "We'll make it work, small payments, nothing fancy. Just promise me you'll keep it honest." I promised. And just like that, I became the owner of my own garage. I renamed it Scar's Garage, gave it a fresh coat of paint, and opened the doors with my hands trembling but my heart steady. It wasn't big, it wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Built on sweat, second chances, and every lesson I'd ever learned from my father. Scar's Garage didn't explode overnight. There were slow days, rough months, and plenty of moments I questioned if I'd made the right choice. But word spread, quietly, steadily. People liked that I explained things without condescending. I treated every customer with respect, whether they drove a rusty pickup or a brand new SUV. And more than anything, I listened. That alone, I learned, goes a long way. Within a year, we had regulars, college kids, single moms, retired veterans, women who told me they finally felt safe bringing their car to a shop. I started hosting free workshops on car basics for women and teens. I hung up a sign that said honest work, fair price, no judgment. And I meant every word. Then one rainy afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled into the lot. I didn't recognize the driver at first. He looked older, tired, thinner. But when he stepped out and said, "Scarlett," my stomach dropped. It was Chase. He looked around the shop, eyes lingering on the sign, the freshly painted walls, the line of customers waiting patiently. "You built this?" he asked. "I did," I said simply, wiping my hands on a rag. He hesitated, then nodded toward my tiny office. "Can we talk?" We sat down. I didn't offer him coffee. He told me everything. After taking over the old garage, he tried to modernize it, raised prices, cut corners, brought in corporate partners. The business collapsed in under a year. He lost most of his savings trying to save it. Eventually, he sold the land to a developer. "I thought it would be easy," he admitted. "I thought knowing spreadsheets was enough, but I didn't understand the people or the place." I waited, arms crossed. I wasn't going to let him rewrite the story. He looked up, voice low. "I was wrong. About the business, about you. You were always the one keeping it alive, not me. I just never saw it." Silence settled between us. For once, Chase looked small. Not arrogant or smug, just human. I didn't say it's too late. I didn't say I told you so. I just stood, nodded once, and said, "I have customers to help." He got up slowly, nodded back, and left. That night, I locked up the shop, stood outside in the drizzle, and felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Not because Chase had failed, but because I had succeeded. A few months later, I drove back to Ohio for the first time since the funeral. I took the long route, past the streets I grew up on, the diner where Dad and I used to get breakfast every Sunday, the park where he first taught me how to drive stick shift in his old Chevy. Every corner held a memory, and every memory stung just a little less than the one before. When I pulled up to the old garage, my heart sank. The sign was gone. The doors were painted a dull gray. The place had been converted into a cafe with patio seating and string lights. They called it the Wrench and Bean, like some cruel joke. I parked across the street and just stared at it. This used to be a place where I learned what it meant to work hard, to solve problems, to stand my ground. Now it was selling overpriced lattes and avocado toast. I couldn't help but smile a little. It was absurd, really. But underneath that smile was something deeper, grief. Not just for my father, but for everything we built that was now gone. I drove to the cemetery next. The grass was overgrown and the wind had picked up. I found Dad's headstone near the back, beneath a crooked old oak tree. I sat down beside it, pulled my jacket tighter, and just breathed. "Hey, Dad," I said softly. "I finally did it. Got my own place. You'd hate the color of the walls, but you'd love the noise. It's honest work, loud, real." I laughed a little, then wiped my eyes. "You know, for a long time, I thought you gave it all to Chase because I wasn't enough. That maybe grease on a girl's hands wasn't what you pictured for your legacy." I looked up at the sky, blinking back tears. "But I get it now. Maybe you didn't know how to show it. Or maybe you thought giving me nothing would push me to build something bigger. I don't know." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small, worn keychain. It had Dad's old wrench logo on it, chipped and faded, but still there. "I kept this," I whispered, "all this time. Thought maybe you should have it back." I laid it gently on the headstone. Then I stood up, took one last look, and walked away. Not broken, not bitter, just free. Back in Michigan, the shop was humming when I returned. The guys had held things down while I was gone. Jasmine handled front desk calls like a pro, and Leo managed a last-minute parts order without a hiccup. I walked through the bay, watching them work, and felt something swell in my chest. Not pride, exactly. Something bigger. Purpose. Scar's garage wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. Customers kept coming, not because of coupons or ads, but because they trusted us. They knew this place wasn't just about fixing cars, it was about treating people right. One afternoon, a young girl came in with her mom. She couldn't have been older than 10. While her mom talked to Jasmine, the girl wandered around the shop, eyes wide. She saw me under a car, stepped closer, and asked, "You fix cars?" I slid out from under the vehicle, wiped my hands, and smiled. "Sure do." Her eyes lit up. "Girls can be mechanics?" I knelt down and said, "Girls can be anything." She grinned, and right there I saw a version of myself. Curious, hopeful, full of grease-stained wonder. I never set out to prove anything. I just wanted to hold on to something my father and I built. But somewhere along the way, I created something new. Something mine. People ask me if I've forgiven Chase. If I've forgiven my father. The truth? I don't know. Some wounds don't close neatly. Some answers never come. But I stopped waiting for those things to fix themselves. Instead, I've built a life where I don't need them to. And that, I think, is its own kind of peace. As I lock up the shop each night, I pass by the framed photo near the front counter. It's of Dad, younger, laughing with grease on his face. Beside it is a faded copy of the original garage logo. I keep it there to remember where I came from. But everything else? I built that. With my own 2 hands. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.